Chairman, for those of you who don't know, I am the president and CEO of the United Way of Greater Plymouth County. I have been in this role for the last 16 and a half years, almost 17 actually, coming up in March. Very honored to be part of this organization and this community over the years. There's some phenomenal people. I am thrilled to be joined by my colleague, Kim Scotland, who most of you know. If folks can mute, that would be helpful, unless you needed to ask a question, that would be helpful to the rest. So Kim is our Director of Community Relations and Marketing. I also have two critical volunteers who are the co-chairs of our Community Impact Committee of the Board of Directors, Mr. Peter Smith and Ms. Carol Martin. And we are thrilled that they are here with us, and we will all be taking parts of this presentation. We thank you for being here. The United Way's process for allocations over the years has really been fine-tuned, and we are quite proud of it in that it's very volunteer-driven. We think it's very inclusive. We try to be clear, and year to year, we try to make changes based on the feedback that we get from our volunteers. There are over 50 volunteers who actually review proposals and do site visits. That's in addition to our board of directors, who reviews their recommendations and makes final recommendations. And so we get feedback from those folks. We also get feedback from our community partners, whether you're funded or not funded. We are very open to constructive criticism. I will just alert you that this year, most of the things are staying the same for the last several years. So if you've been applying, most of it will be familiar to you, but we are engaged with a new electronic platform that we will be talking about from Foundant. It will allow you to apply for United Way funding electronically. We are also returning to in-person site visits. And unless the situation changes public health wise, that is our intention. So we're excited about that. And the general focus on what we would describe in the 70s as the level of poverty in our community is something that we'll be talking about. And let's kind of begin there. Nelson Mandela has this terrific quote, and we'll put it up in a moment. Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity. It is an act of justice. It is the protection of a fundamental human right, the right to dignity and a decent life. We know that people without having enough or sufficient financial resources leads to a number of problems, feeding our families, being housed in safe, decent living spaces, connecting to appropriate healthcare services that include not only our physical health, but behavioral health in terms of substance addictions and mental health issues. All of these things really are tied into the poverty level of our community. And so in what you're going to see is, while we are still focusing on some of the same major issues that we have in years past, and we'll go over those, there's the umbrella issue of poverty, and at heart is really the issue of fairness, justice, equity, and I think this will become clear as we talk more about the situation. Most of you know that our service area is fairly expansive and covers the city of Brockton and the 21 towns in Greater Plymouth County. There are a few towns that we don't cover in Plymouth County, like Wareham, but there are some additional towns that we cover that are outside of Plymouth County, which include Stoughton, Easton, Avon. And what we're trying to make sure is that we do a good job in covering as much of that population, which is well over 500,000 people these days, So we're talking about 500,000 people, and our focus, as I mentioned, will be on those people who are on the lower end of the income scale. The three areas that we've always been focusing on, the large umbrella, or are staying the same: education, health, and financial stability. Those have been the same, and really driven by the United Way worldwide, and all of our United Ways pretty much ascribe to those general areas. But again, as we move forward in these slides, we'll be talking a little bit more about the specific need areas. And again, most of you, I'm sure, will be familiar with those. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to my friend Carol Martin, who has been with our community impact group for quite a number of years. And Carol works for our friends at the Harbor One Bank. And Carol, take it on.
Thank you, Dennis. And first, I wanted to say Happy New Year to all of you, and thank you for the wonderful work that you all do to make a difference in Greater Plymouth County. I get to sit in on once in a while some of the executive meetings, and the stories that you tell and the work that you do is just absolutely incredible. So thank you for that. I also wanted to thank Dennis and Kim for their leadership, as well as Peter in working with getting this online electronic format done for us this year. I think it's going to make an incredible impact for you and make it easier for you to submit your proposals to us. So thank you to all of them for their support on that. So now that I've said all that, as Dennis mentioned, this year we are focusing on certainly the pillars that we've had in the past, but the overarching piece of this is going to be looking at poverty and how we can make an impact on poverty with your proposals this year in the community. One of the things that, as you can read here, our United Way, the Family Center Community Connections, are generating these life-saving resources through our annual campaign and getting private foundation funds and different things to build stronger communities. And one of the, I think it's just a staggering number, the 7.5% of the population in Plymouth County are currently living below the poverty line. And we believe that in this round of funding that we can make improvements on the poverty levels and really help make a difference regarding Greater Plymouth County for our citizens and the people that you support. So next slide, Kim. So as Dennis mentioned earlier, the 5 impact areas, and we're going to continue to focus on these in regards to poverty, but it's feeding our families, housing and homelessness, access to affordable health services, supporting children and youth, and supporting job training and placement. Then in regards to the actual process, a couple things here. We're seeking innovative partnerships within our community. We know that you're compassionate and charitable organizations, but I think we also know that financial stability, as Dennis mentioned, is really the key driver for growth and stability of the families within our communities. If you don't have that foundation, it makes it much harder to work through other issues that you have. You can see here the other thing in regards to the allocation process for us is that it's certainly a competitive process, and we want to make sure that the initiatives that you submit meet the needs of our communities, but also equally important to us is the diversity, equity, and inclusion and feeling of belonging that the people that you're servicing feel when they go to your organizations. So as we've done in previous years, we're going to be asking that you include your statement of diversity and equity and inclusion as part of the application process. That's, as I said, as important to us as the services that you provide. We want to make sure that we're seeing organizations that provide racial equality, making sure that there is justice and we're doing the right things across our funded partners. So I think that is my last slide. I am going to turn it over to Peter, who's going to be talking about the changes this year in the process.
Great, thanks, Carol, and thanks for that. Also great to see everybody. Recognized a lot of you as a panelist and team captain over the last 3 years, so it's great to see you and looking forward to working with you again this year. I get to talk about the changes, and what's neat is every year we do some new things, and Dennis and Kim do a great job working to streamline and simplify the process. And this year is a major change in that direction. So first is just a new online system that's already been mentioned. And I've been involved with that and was a super user and tested it out, and I really like it. And for you, those of you that embrace change in technology, you're going to love it. For those of you that struggle with change, we're going to help you through it. So I think you'll definitely get there. So that's pretty exciting, and we'll talk some more about what that all means for you. But it is going to dramatically simplify this whole process. And then also this year, we plan to return to insight visits. And I've been doing this for 3 years. This will be my 4th, and I haven't visited one agency yet. Because year 1 was the first year of switching to virtual meetings. So I'm personally looking forward to getting out and visiting agencies as part of the process this year. We're also assuming that you're allowing visits, and we're also going to want to take some time up front to make sure we understand your protocols with site visits. So make sure we'll work through that as well. Another change for this year is a common indicator of poverty that we've talked to already, and making sure that we've got some sort of indicator that you can report out at by the end of the year and tell us what kind of progress we're making to achieving that poverty objective. And then finally, what a lot of our panelists have asked for is just a summary question that helps clarify what the initiative is about. So we've added that one piece this year. Okay, so these should look familiar to those that have done it in the past. They're very similar to prior years, and that is from a guideline perspective, number of initiatives is anywhere between 1 and 5 per agency. And then as far as the funding request range, minimum of 5,000 and maximum of 30. And then we'll also require that you've got 1 year of operation, and that needs to include financial statements as well for that 1 year period. And then the change we made last year, which I think was significant and continue this year, is just a 1-part submission. So prior to 2 years ago, it was you had to put 1 submission up front and then follow that up, and now it's all combined together. So I think that's helpful. And then some guidelines, some additional guidelines. It's still the same as the last year. The format's going to look very similar. It's the 3 portions: the organization profile, then information on your initiative itself, and then the last piece being the budget. So the budget piece will be using the template that we provide. You'll fill that out and attach that to the online tool. And then finally, just the collective impact indicators, focusing in on the overall umbrella of poverty, and then being able to report out how you impact the 5 subtopics underneath poverty. And that's like a checkbox system that should be very familiar to you. All right, Kim, turn it back to you.
Actually, I think it comes back to me, Peter. That's okay. Thank you. And we're just so lucky to have both Peter and Carol as high-level volunteers. As I mentioned at the beginning, the allocations process is very dependent on our volunteers, and the dedication that they show, I think, is very evident. This portion of the presentation is all about our partner agencies. And though we're going to be talking in terms of a compliance agreement, it's really about the partnership that we absolutely need to have be very vibrant between ourselves and the organizations that we're funding. Without that clear connection, we can't generate sufficient resources in order to help fund the things that you are doing. So this is really critical, and I think you'll see how these things tie in, even though they are on the surface, they're compliance issues that we need you to be abiding by. I'm hopeful that you will see the meaningfulness of all of these things and as they tie in. Typically, our partnership compliance is talking about co-branding, fundraising standards and policies that are involved in the providing mutual marketing benefits and supports the annual fundraising campaign. And of course, the United Way staff and allocation volunteers will be monitoring the compliance and the different pieces of this as we go forward. But the compliance issues are mainly, as I mentioned, co-branding, signage for United Way. At one time in our history, United Way could boast as being one of the 5 most identified international logos. I think with all the competition out there and all of the marketing that we're hit with both on the private and the nonprofit sector, that becomes more challenging. So we need the folks that are funded by our United Way to show that relationship very visibly by having logos, on signage in their locations, having logos on some of their documents and their flyers, indicating that at least in part, United Way supplies funding to the initiatives that you're trying so hard to make successful. So all of that, and we do supply the logos and the electronic parts. There's also reporting requirements, year-end reports that are due that include demographic information, success stories, and outcomes. And it should make common sense, but if we can't go out to those organizations, those companies and individual donors that are providing resources and convince them that by investing their resources to United Way, we're getting our community partners to be successful in meeting some of the critical community needs, then it becomes very difficult for us to raise those revenues, to increase those resources. So it's vitally important that we ask you to report on a regular basis, not only just a reporting of your successes, but pictures and stories that really mean a lot to most people. So that's the another arm of this. The partnership events and activities requirements, we have annual meetings. We have alluded to earlier, Carol had said that she attended the agency executives of the United Way meeting that happens typically every other month. And it's a gathering of those funded partners. And it's really for the purpose of sharing information, talking about what the situation is out there. We all know that the last several years have been almost nightmarish in terms of limited resources, increased demand for services, challenges like we've never seen before. So the partnership events, whether you're talking those monthly meetings, those bi-monthly meetings, or our annual meeting at the end of the year, our kickoff of the campaigns, and any number of other items that we're going to be coming up with. For example, we'll be coming up with a women's affinity group that we're going to have an event where we're hoping to increase those people who are contributing to the United Way in a way that we can then contribute greater resources to you. So there's requirements that you're involved in it. We have Volunteer South Coast is an electronic platform that we ask all of our funded partners to register for, and that's mainly to benefit you so that you can take advantage of an electronic platform where you can register volunteer opportunities as agencies, and then your people can look on the site and find your organization when they're looking to contribute their time and their energy and their talents. So and then the employee campaigns, we require that all of those organizations that are funded by United Way run a United Way campaign. We recognize that you're nonprofits and that we're not expecting you to necessarily compete with some of our corporate partners, but it is quite amazing that some of the larger organizations and smaller organizations do very incredibly impressive United Way campaigns, and they do it happily. They really make it an interesting event. We're available to go out and do presentations at your organizations, but we've also found it particularly effective when we take other nonprofit organizations who are United Way agencies, and they come out and present what good their dollars that they're getting do, so that it's not just your organization saying, okay, by the way, United Way funds us, so we need to be contributing to them if we can. The campaigns themselves, like all of our campaigns, are voluntary for the people who are involved. The requirement is that you just simply give the opportunity for your employees and your volunteers and anybody who's a stakeholder of your organizations to contribute to United Way. All right. There are some additional key points and tips that are important in order to be successful to receive United Way funding, and critical, and most of the nonprofits in our community already are well aware of this. If you can't point to measurable outcomes that indicate what clear outcomes that you have, then it's really difficult for the volunteers to see that value and to be able to support whatever your initiatives are. So when you can point to measurable outcomes, things that happen as a result of your efforts that are positive. One of the simpler, more straightforward things is we used to look at graduation rates. Some of our education programs, some of the agencies that supported us do great things in that area, and they reduce the number of people who youth who are dropping out of high school. So that kind of is an example of that. So measurable outcomes become really critical. Other key points are that this is, I've mentioned earlier, a volunteer-driven process. That each of your narrative reports is reviewed by a team of volunteers. Typically, it's 4 or 5 people, and they will also conduct a site visit. Do not assume, this is critically important, do not assume that your panelists know anything about your organization or the initiative. You have to assume that they're starting from scratch. You may get lucky enough that a long-term volunteer may have been out at your site in the past, but you really want to make it clear to your staff and anybody who's presenting about your initiatives to assume they don't know anything. And there's a reason for that, because there are occasions where there's some inconsistencies between the narrative and what they see when they go out for the site visit. And when we've discovered that those issues don't get discussed and addressed, then the scoring sometimes can be lower on those proposals because the volunteers saw an inconsistency and they may or may not have felt comfortable asking. So whenever you want to make sure that the volunteers understand your initiative from beginning to end, making sure they don't have any questions that they leave before you've had a chance to offer them up. Because what we heard was when those inconsistencies weren't addressed and when the scoring was lower, when we were reviewing people's proposals afterwards to try to give them some constructive criticism, their comments as an agency were, if they had only told me or asked the question, we would have made it clear what the situation was. So we're going to be telling you on your end, please ask the questions, please, or please present as if folks who are volunteers don't know anything about it. We will be telling our volunteers similarly, be comfortable asking those questions. So we're trying to make sure both ends of this process understand not to walk out the door without, when we're doing site visits and when you're looking at proposals, make sure you ask the questions, make sure you assume that you've got to answer all the questions from the beginning to end. And I apologize for beating that to death, but that's critical. This is another important part of the United Way process. As much as over the years that we fine-tuned it, and the scoring rubrics that we use they've got numbers, it's still a subjective process, that it's different people's views and perspectives. And while we're trying to have a fair process, there are always going to be some level of subjectivity to it. We do not share the scores with folks on the outside. The scores are only used internally. At the end of the process, if an organization doesn't receive funding and is interested in general knowing what are some of the areas that they could have improved on, we're happy to have that conversation. There isn't an appeal process. We don't share the actual scores, but we do, and we are concerned where we want agencies to be able to benefit from some of the situations that they've gone through. If they've not been strong in certain areas, we'll focus on those and say, here are some areas where you might improve your scoring. So, but it is critical that you understand it is a volunteer driven process, which means there's a level of subjectivity in this process. All right. And as we go forward, we got a few more tips here. These are important. These are important typically for our volunteers. I should have said to you, our volunteers most often come from those companies and some of those people who are donors who are contributed to United Way and have a stake in the community. So they really are excited about being volunteers. These points resonate with them, and we've discovered this over the years. The volunteers need to see that there's local impact, that if you're looking for United Way funds to support an initiative, they need to see that it makes a difference at the community level, at the local level. And that also, they want to know that the resources have been targeted on those people who are in most need, who are most vulnerable. And as we've said to you at the outset of this meeting, that are focusing on that poverty level and below, that those people who are struggling below the poverty level are the folks that we're most concerned with, and we want to see resources be focused on them. And then this should be obvious, but I think it bears repeating. Partnerships are so important. We recognize that no one organization in a community is going to resolve some of these significant problems that we have. So we are always focusing on the idea that partnerships are critical to our success. So we ask you, who are your partners? What are they doing to help improve the success of the initiatives for the funds that you're applying for? So partnerships are absolutely critical to the success. And this tagline actually comes from United Way Worldwide, is that together we can lift up our communities. It is just critically important. At this point, it is my honor and pleasure to turn you over to my colleague, Kim Scotland, who has been doing this. Oh my goodness, I think she celebrated 10 years at our United Way not too long ago. But she is very good and organized in this process, and she is going to explain some of the logistics and the details, and that way you don't have to listen to me drone on any further at this point. Kim?
Thank you so much, Dennis, and good morning again to everyone. Thank you to Carol and Peter for your amazing leadership. We really could not do it without you and the members of our Community Impact Committee that oversee the process, in addition to those volunteers. So just a couple quick housekeeping things before I go through my portion. We are recording this session, as you probably are aware, so we will make this available afterwards. We will make these slides available also. They'll be on our website. When we get to the end, we'll show you the link where you can access all this information and the link to apply. I will go through a fair amount of detailed information about the components of the process itself. So just wanted to make you aware that you'll have access to these slides afterwards. So I'm going to walk through our kind of timeline for things. And then, as I said, I'll go through the process. I will show you very quickly what the new online site looks like that we're very excited about. And we'll make sure there is plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions, please hang on to those at the end. If you want to pop them in the chat, you're welcome to, so that you don't forget them as they come to mind. So our deadline for all of the forms this year is Friday, February 17th. So you'll submit all of the required information and the documentation uploaded to the online portal by Friday, the 17th at 4 p.m., please. The following week, we'll have our finance committee look through the applicant's financial information. So if you hear from us in that week with any questions or any questions, most importantly from our finance committee, please respond to us as quickly as you can so that we can get things in order for our reviewers. Just see someone in the waiting room. Let me just hit admit there. We will have our first meeting with our Community Impact Committee and our allocations panelists on March 7th. That's when they'll get to meet their team members. They'll learn their initiatives that they're reviewing. As Dennis mentioned, we usually have about 4 to 5 folks on a volunteer team, and they will review about 5 or so initiatives. And then the panelists will be out reviewing those initiatives and conducting the site visits at all of your agencies from anywhere after that meeting, so the middle of March to the end of April. You'll be asked for an agency contact, and there's a site visit information sheet that's part of the process. This is where you'll let us know who the team captain should reach out to schedule those site visits, and you can expect to hear from them somewhere in the month of March. They're very good. They just need to get their team members together in scheduling. So again, please get back to those team captains as quick as you can so that you can get your site visits scheduled. Scoring sheets are due back to us on May 1st. Then our Community Impact Committee will look through all of the scores and the comments and any information that we got from our reviewers to make recommendations to our volunteer board of directors. The board will vote on the funding this year on May 18th. It is a 1-year funding cycle, as I think all of you know, but it's a July 1 to June 30th funding cycle. We'll get those letters out in June. It takes us a little while to get them together. So you'll expect to hear from us probably about the second week of June. Again, funding starts on July 1, and then those year-end reports will be due over the summer at the end of the cycle. So around the end of July is usually when it falls. So we have time to prepare them for our campaigns. So as I said, I'm going to open up the portal in just a moment, but this is just an example of what the homepage looks like. This is when we were in our sandbox site. So of course you won't see that watermark behind there, but it has all of the instructions, and then the apply button is this blue button right up at the top here. So more to come on that. Unless you have an account and found it from some other foundation that you may have applied to, it's likely that we'll all be brand new this year. So the first thing you'll be prompted to do is to create a profile on Foundit, and you'll be asked some basic information, your nonprofit tax ID number, your address, that sort of thing to get you registered on the system. I will show you in a moment, but there's a handy feature called a questions list that can be downloaded. So if you want to see all of the questions in a PDF format, maybe you want to share that with other members of your team, et cetera, there's an easy way to do that. We do ask that you have your executive director or your CEO, the person that is the leader of the organization, sign off on this portion electronically. And you'll see in the little screenshot here, the collaborate feature. We recommend that that's the easiest way to do it. So rather than having multiple staff register and submit one application, you just have the one person that's the lead, and then they can invite as many other people as needed. So whether it's a CEO to sign off, if the grant writer or the development person is doing it, maybe you need to invite your finance director for the budget, et cetera. The collaborate feature is going to be the easiest way to do that. You'll also be asked for the contact, the towns that you are served that are, again, within our 22 towns to be eligible for funding, your mission statement, information about accessibility or ADA statement, and as Carol shared, your diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. And then this has not changed, but just to reiterate, back when we were doing more of the Microsoft Word and drop-off style, you only need to fill out the organization and eligibility profile one time. So you're welcome to submit up to 5 initiatives, and there's an option to kind of bypass this section if you've already completed it once with all the required documentation. So at this point, let me just pull it up very quickly. So this is the homepage for Foundit. This is our portal. A couple quick things on this page. Of course, you'll start with create a new account. I do have one to demo what it looks like on the inside. I also wanted to point out on the side here, there are some instructions and our contact information, and there's a link to a tutorial for new agencies on how to use the site that was created by Foundit. We think it's pretty handy. It's not too long. There's a short video if you're more of a video person, and there's some screenshots and instructions as to how to navigate the system. So we ask that you check that out if you're having any trouble, and you can also reach out to us, of course, but if you want to start with that tutorial to get a feel for the way that the system works, we hope it's very easy, but we know it'll be a learning curve for all of us this year. So just wanted to point that out. There's also a nice chat feature in Foundit, so you can live chat someone from the team with technical questions, maybe you're having trouble with a character limit issue or a case sensitive sort of thing formatting, we would recommend you start with Foundant via that chat feature. And then of course, always reach out to us with any questions that come up. So you'll start a new profile. And then when you're logged in, this is what your dashboard will look like. So it's got my name and my organization information. And then I put in a couple of initiatives so that we had some in the system. So if you've already submitted some, you'll see them here. But mainly where you want to start is apply. So you'll go to apply. This is the page that we saw the screenshot of. Just have our faces above the button here. So these are the instructions here. You'll scroll down, you'll see all the key information. You can preview if you would like to, if you want to go in and take a peek at things, but you'll click this apply button. It's going to remind me that I already have 2 in. So in case someone else is in and they're not sure if there's already been one started, here they are, and I could go in and edit them if I want to, but yes, I still want to apply. And this is what the portal looks like. So this is that collaborate feature. If you would like to go in and invite anyone else from your staff, whether it's a CEO for the sign off or another member to help contribute to the process. This is the questions list. So you could download a PDF and see all of the information that's required for the process and all the questions if you wanted to paste it into Microsoft Word, etc., and work on that. It will auto save and you can save and come back in the process. I want to point that out too, but please also, be mindful to save often just so that there's not any computers crashing or anything like that. And then this is the form that I was talking about. So you'll go through and fill it out. And then if you're applying for a second or a third, et cetera, initiative, this is the main question. Have you already completed the organization profile and eligibility checklist? And you can say, yes, I already have. And you can, there's 2 ways. You can scroll past all of this because you've already done it. And you'll see the next section for the narrative proposal. Or what I like to do, is just collapse the section. So you'll see these arrows on all of the 4 sections, which includes the site visit information sheet. If you just click that, it will collapse and automatically bring you to the next section. And of course, you can reopen it as well, but that's a handy way to get through the different sections of Foundant itself to complete everything. So let me just pop back into the slide deck. And again, if folks have questions about any of that, we will definitely have time at the end to go through things. Okay. So there is an eligibility checklist that we were just looking at, and there is also a required upload section. So the eligibility checklist is just you indicating that, yes, my organization meets all of these requirements. There's a radio button at the end that says just that, yes, and that's where the sign off will be from the director. So as a funded partner agency, we ask that you are governed by a local board of directors that meets regularly and the meeting minutes are maintained. A reminder, we need all of our agencies to at least have 1 full year of operation, and that includes having the financials for a year to be eligible to be funded. You have stated policies of non-discrimination. One of our requirements from United Way Worldwide is that we have all of our partners fill out the Patriot Act compliance agreement. So that's what this bullet refers to. And that's something that will be able to be downloaded off our website for you to quickly fill out and re-upload. You'll confirm that all staff and volunteers working directly with clients have been properly queried. You'll agree that you will comply with what Dennis went through, which is our partner agency marketing and fundraising agreements. You will submit those year-end reports at the end of the funding cycle for each initiative that you receive funding for. And if you are currently receiving funding, you indicate that you have fully completed and submitted all of the year-end reports for the previous year. So then we get into the information that needs to be uploaded. So there's just a spot where you'll be able to put in pretty much any format, PDF, et cetera, the requirements here. So your board list with the terms of offices, you do not need to upload the meeting minutes. That's something that we've changed in recent years from feedback from you all. So you're indicating that meeting minutes are maintained, but they do not have to be submitted, just the board list here. You will upload your most recent annual certified audit or your financial statements, your most recent certificate of solicitation, IRS Form 990 or 990EZ, the current fiscal year budget for your organization, so your overall budget for all of the work that you do at your org. your non-discrimination policies, a signed copy of that Patriot Act certification form that I mentioned, a signed copy of the partnership compliance agreement, and then samples of your marketing material. So your letterhead, your brochures, things of that nature. This is where we talk about if you have received funding from United Way, we love to see the logo on those materials. It really helps us, hopefully in a mutual way, to have our logo on there when we're fundraising, and for you to show the partnership. So if you have anything with the logo on there in the past year that you want to include, that's wonderful. But even if you're brand new, we love to see some of your marketing materials. And then we get into the initiatives themselves. So once you get past all of the general agency information, you'll have the initiative narrative proposal section. All of this information we've already gone over, so just a quick refresher. We ask that each initiative is in the range of 5,000 to 30,000 per request. You're going to let us know what kind of strategy you're proposing. So is it direct service, meaning you're helping directly families and individuals? Or is it more of a systemic change initiative, meaning that you are, for example, developing a transportation system for your region, or something that's a larger systemic big picture type of initiative? And then which of those 5 poverty-focused areas are you addressing with this initiative? You will then see the initiative description itself. So in this category, there are 5 different criteria for the initiative. You'll see that you have the option to have the bullet point format to be able to bold, italicize, underline, etc. in this section. And we ask that you keep things as brief as possible here, both for your benefit and for our reviewers as they go through the information. There is a character limit set for each box to help you stay within the guidelines. This is the initiative summary. So the kind of big idea for your initiative, as Peter mentioned, this is some feedback we got from our panelists. It could also be helpful for United Way, and when we put together our marketing materials, we love to promote and brag about our amazing funded partner agency. So it could be up on our website, in brochures, etc. And we're really only looking for 1 to 2 sentences as to the main idea for the initiative that you're requesting funding for. The partnership compliance. So here, if your organization is a currently funded partner agency, you'll be scored by our United Way with feedback from our allocations panelists as to what your score was for the past year. And you can simply just write, we are a currently funded partner agency, and move on to the next question. If your organization is new to United Way, or maybe you've applied a couple years back, but you're kind of reintegrating into the process, we just ask that you briefly let us know how you intend to meet those marketing requirements, reporting requirements, etc. in this section. Target population. I know this is a pretty intuitive one, but you'll hear a lot throughout our process. It's really helpful to be specific and to be as specific as possible. So this is where you'll let us know, who are you serving with the funds? Are there any unique characteristics that we should be aware of? This is where you really want to look at things with that lens of equity and justice. So, a sensitivity to the underrepresented and historically disadvantaged groups in our larger effort altogether to affirm diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you'll see, by the way, the points for each section are noted parenthetically. So target population is 5 points on that scoring sheet. Experience and strategy is the third part. Why is your organization well equipped to take on this initiative? How does it maybe align with your strategic goals? How does it align with other programs that you might be working on in your mission statement? Are there any recent articles or research or evidence-based practices that it aligns with that you can share with us here to kind of showcase the need and why your agency would like to address that focus area? Part 4 is partnerships and compliance. As Dennis said, we all need to work together. We all know that we can't do it alone. So this is where you will tell us again in detail, if you can, a bit more specific as to if you have any partners on this project and specifically what their roles are. So, for example, we are having a food pantry and we are partnering with an organization to use their community room to give the food out, or we are, partnering with an organization. We're going to send individuals serve from our group and from their group, and we're going to partner in that way for the classes that we're teaching. And then finally, the fifth part is the local impact and the outcomes. This is perhaps the most important part, in my opinion, where you let us know what you're hoping to achieve with this initiative. The number of folks that will be no longer food insecure, the number of meals that may be served, the number of folks that will be sheltered, that will receive job training, et cetera, in our 5 categories. You will see here the collective impact outcomes. We say collective because there is a list. So in each of the 5 focus areas, there is a list of some indicators that were generated by United Way Worldwide, which we are a local United Way and part of United Way Worldwide. And they were able to go through a large sampling of local United Ways and their partners and come up with some common indicators. And it's really helpful for us to kind of align our goals and our messaging to those indicators as well. So if your initiative falls into one of the ones listed, you would check it off. There's also a spot in each section to list an other, an alternative or perhaps an additional one, and to just let us know what that may be. And then the reminder, you've probably heard it 5 times today, but the common indicator of poverty is something that's new for us this year. And if you are selected for funding in the year-end report, we will ask you to let us know the percentage of individuals that were served by the initiative who increased their disposable income by accessing benefits or reducing costs. So those are the 5 portions of the written narrative. And then, of course, there is the site visit. So as we said, we're back to in person this year, which we're really excited about. For those that haven't been a part, my watch hurt me. For those that haven't been a part of the process in the past, a site visit is usually about an hour in length. It tends to be at your facility. If applicable, if you can give a brief tour of the space and the organization, that's always really helpful to our volunteer reviewers. If you can, it's great to have individuals serve there with testimonials or board members. That's not required, just some kind of best practices that have worked well in the past. And those will be scheduled, as we said, by the end of March. They can start anytime from March 8th, and they will go through the end of April. The site visit is the opportunity for the panelists to witness the consistency of what's written in the narrative to what they're seeing in person, just as Dennis said, and a great opportunity for our panelists to get to ask you all questions. I think everything on here we really already shared, but again, we're back to in person. If for some reason your organization needs a virtual site visit, we will entertain that, whether it's a safety concern or there's something going on where you think it would be better to have a virtual site visit on something such as a Zoom call, which we've used for the past couple of years. We ask that you just let us know that you prioritize that in the site visit information sheet so we know ahead of time. They may be kind of approved by our community impact committee on an as needed basis. And then the last bullet here in italics is an important one, that any visit that may need to be held virtually this year when we're having the majority in person will be scored in the same exact way and evaluated using equivalent scoring and criteria. So again, we're hoping to be all back in person, but we want to be flexible and understand that there may be some reason on your end that you can let us know that an initiative does need to have a virtual site visit. So the site visits are going to cover your programming, your staffing, your evidence of collaboration, the evidence of the population that you are serving. And then if you're United, or I'm sorry, not your United Way, if your agency receives United Way funding, we would look for, from the allocations panels, we'll keep an eye out for signage. So there's just a couple examples here on the bottom of the signs that are sent out to all of our partner agencies with the award letters. So if you have that on your door in the space where the program might be taking place, that is always really appreciated and helpful. And of course, if you are new, you will not be at all penalized for not having up any United Way signage. So then the last part is the initiative budget. And this is where you're going to be very specific about all initiative related figures. You will go on our site, you will download the Excel doc that we've used for the last few years for the budget, fill it out, and then upload it into our online portal. Please keep all of the figures initiative specific. Make sure, of course, that the budget balances. That's very important. It's something that may come up as a question for our panelists if for some reason it does not balance. There's an option with the budget for a budget narrative. So pretty much each line item has the option below for you to give a little bit more detail if you would like to. It's not required that you fill out the full narrative. That's really for you to provide additional comments as needed. So just as it says here, if you need notes, put them in there. But if you want to skip some of those narrative sections, you are welcome to. And then when you get that year-end report at the end of the funding cycle, we will ask for the actual initiative revenue and expenses. So of course, at this time they're proposed. And once we get through the funding cycle, you can let us know exactly how the budgeting came to be. And then 2 other quick guidelines on the budget form, and this is directly from questions from you all and partner agencies in the past that we've gotten as to kind of what's accepted on that budget form. So the first one is in-kind support. You are absolutely welcome to list any in-kind support that you have on the budget form. We ask so that you balance it. So if you have the in-kind revenue, you put the equal value recorded for the in-kind expense section. But it's always nice to see the in-kind support on the budget form. And then capital expenditures, things like building improvements, maybe new technology, laptops, tablets, that sort of thing for individuals that you're serving. That's certainly allowable. But what we say is that you want to make sure that anything that's capital relates directly back to our mission at United Way, which is improving the lives of individuals most in need in Greater Plymouth County. So please be mindful if you have any capital included in the budget form that we will ask in the year-end report for how many folks were directly served and benefited as a result of those capital acquisitions and changes. So same place that we always put all the information, we like to have it right on our website here. So UWGPC, as in United Way of Greater Plymouth County.org/funding is where you're going to find the link for the portal. You will find the slide deck and the recording. You will find the required information that needs to be uploaded into Foundant, the partner agency agreement, the Patriot Act, and the budget form, all in one place. It's hopefully helpful for you on our website. You can also get to the funding page that's linked here anywhere on our site from the footer menu. So if you're exploring maybe service area or other things on our website, you can just click funding at the bottom to be redirected. We have Dennis and my contact information here if you need to reach out to us. That is our main phone number at our United Way office. We always welcome questions as you are filling out the forms and going through things. And we also love to answer any questions you might have this morning live. And that is it. We always love to end all of our presentations with a really sincere thank you. It's great to have so many talented, amazing folks in the room this morning. Very grateful for our board of directors, our community impact committee, as I mentioned, and all of you for partnering all the work that you do every day. So thank you for being here and taking the time, and thank you for your work. Just going to stop sharing so we can all see each other well. And we will open it up for any questions at this time. I see. Is it possible to be emailed the recording after the meeting? Yes, definitely, Kara. We will have this whole recording right up on our website, as I mentioned. Thank you, Sarah, for the kind words. I see, Chris, you have your hand up.
Hi, Kim.
Go for
Yeah,
it.
a quick question, excuse me, about partnerships. If we have initiative proposal that involves a partnership, does the partner also have to be a United Way affiliate or,
No, no.
related to
Good
the United Way?
question.
Yeah, good question. The answer is no.
Okay, thank you.
It really, the partners that you pick are up to you. It's just whatever you can do to weave them into the ultimate initiative to make sure that they've got a meaningful relationship and a role that, as long as you define it and describe it, then that they don't have to be a United Way funded organization.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions at this time? It's great. We have 3 pages of attendees this morning. It's wonderful to see you all. I'm just scrolling through to see if there's any hands up or anything that I'm missing.
Please don't be shy.
Awesome. Okay. I'm not seeing anything additional. I'll give everyone one more minute just in case anyone is typing anything. Otherwise, you know how to reach us if any other questions should come up. And we did it in just under an hour. So thank you all for setting aside probably an hour and a half this morning, but we were able to conclude by 10. So that's always
Wow.
hopefully a positive.
And once again, our thanks to Peter and Carol for being these critical volunteers and leading the community impact, which oversees the allocation process. And as you can clearly tell, my colleague Kim Scotland gets this stuff and is really good at it. So if there's anything we can do, we want to be helpful to you. I think my only regret, my ongoing regret, is that we would like to be raising more resources in order to be able to fund more of the initiatives. We have rarely seen an initiative that was not worthy of funding. And so it always becomes that challenge of making decisions with limited resources among some very talented and compassionate organizations. So we thank you, and I would kind of end with that thank you that we began with. What you do every day is amazing. It's inspirational. And we hope that you are successful, not only in your application to United Way, but in general in what you're doing. We're really appreciative of partnering with you.
Awesome. And I did pop the link into the chat. I know you all can find it easily, but just if anyone wants to copy and paste that before we close, you are welcome to. And you'll see it, it'll be updated. We wanted to wait until after this presentation before we posted the link to the portal. So that'll be updated within the next hour or two. Okay, thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.